Wanguta, Deputy Governor of the Bank of Namibia, Leonie Dan, NAST Executive Management here present, and also NAST staff members, Bank of Namibia Management and staff here present, to our guest speaker, Dr. Nangula Wanja, CEO of the Namibia Investment Promotion Development Board, Ms. Abigail Nainda will be presenting the guest speaker. She is the Deputy Director of Applied Policy and Development Research and Financial Sector Development Department at the Bank of Namibia. Madame April Joffe, UNESCO Chair, Cultural Entrepreneurship and Policy, University of Wits. Madame Nyoki Muhoho, all the way from Kenya, Executive Producer and Scriptwriter, Zebra Publishings. Distinguished lecturers here present, dear students, media, ladies and gentlemen. I'm truly honored on behalf of the Namibia University of Science and Technology to be here with you and to extend a warm welcome to all of you at this very prestigious event, which is the Bank of Namibia Symposium Public Lecture, which sets the tone for tomorrow's event, which is the National Conference or Discussion on Arts. Basically, the theme is Unleashing the Power of Creative Industries, a catalyst for economic development in Namibia. A very opportune theme, which really resonates with our government agenda for youth capacity building and promotion. The Namibia University of Science and Technology is honored to be a long-term partner with the Bank of Namibia, a role that we don't take for granted because it signals our commitment towards our nation in terms of capacity building and economic development. I must also appreciate the long-term collaborations that the Namibia University of Science and Technology has had over the years with Bank of Namibia. Just to showcase, recently in August, we hosted a very important event, which was the inaugural Youth Central Banking Simulation by the Bank of Namibia, which also, in the very same spirit of capacity building, showcased the potential of our students to debate and simulate real banking and business situations. We were very proud to see the students presenting, debating, and really coming up with solutions which will inform our decision makers, whether in the banking sector, in the teaching sector, and beyond. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to welcome you all to this prestigious event. May this event signal strong collaborations, the opportunity to further partner, and obviously to remain human. Thank you so much. You are welcome.
Thank you so much, Professor. As you said, it really has been a long-term partnership with the Namibia University of Science and Technology. So let's give them another round of applause. We've really been hosting all of our public lectures, in fact, for the annual symposium at NAST as well. Ladies and gentlemen, next I would like to invite Ms. Abigail Nainda, Deputy Director in the Research and Financial Sector Department at the Bank of Namibia, to officially introduce the speakers and, of course, the presenters for today. Abigail, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Director of Ceremonies, Deputy Minister of Education, Innovation, Youth, Sport, Arts and Culture, Honorable Dino Balotti, Deputy Governor of the Bank of Namibia, Mr. Epson Wanguta, Deputy Governor of the Bank of Namibia, Ms. Leonie Dan, Professor Efigenia Semente, the Executive Dean of the Faculty of Commerce, Human Sciences and Education, members of the Bank of Namibia Management Committee, members of the Executive of NAST, our host, representatives from the creative industries, I see some of you in our midst, academic staff, students, entrepreneurs, innovators, our invited guests that we will hear from, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, a very good evening to all of you. I have a straightforward job here, and that is just to introduce our speakers. But before I proceed, I think I would be remiss not to repeat and just show our appreciation to the Namibia University of Science and Technology for continuing to host this joint initiative. It has been a long journey, in fact, 7 years when we started this. We thank you very much. We appreciate your support. Now let me introduce our speakers. Thank you. I will start in the order that we will hear from our guest speakers, starting with someone who really needs no introduction, Dr. Nangula Wanja. We affectionately refer to as Me Nangula. Dr. Nangula is, of course, the current and first Chief Executive Officer of the Namibia Investment Promotion and Development Board, which is a public entity in the presidency tasked with quite a huge responsibility, that of promoting and facilitating foreign and domestic investments and coordinating the development of the MSME sector. A huge role. Ms. Nangula, although she also does not want to be referred to lately as a chartered accountant, since she has broadened the scope, but let me just read her bio as is. She is a chartered accountant by profession. Dr. Wanja previously served as an auditor and business consultant over 24 years at PwC Namibia until December 2020, at the end of her 10-year service as the first female and first black country managing partner. So beside the country role at PwC, she had also served on the PwC Southern African Regional Governing Body, as well as the regional management team. Over the years, Dr. Wanja has grown a burden concerning the triple challenges of unemployment, inequality, and poverty that is facing Namibians. This led her to serve on the President's high-level panel on the Namibian economy as the deputy chairperson in 2019, in the midst of a protracted recession. And after that, she also pursued further studies with a focus on the collaboration or the collaborative role required between the public and private sectors to drive inclusive economic growth and find common solutions to these challenges. Please give Dr. Wanja a round of applause. Our second presenter is Ms. April Joffe. She's sitting right there. April Joffe holds the UNESCO Chair in Cultural Entrepreneurship and Policy at the University of the Witwatersrand. She is an economic sociologist working at the intersection of academia and practice in the field of cultural policy. Culture in urban life, culture in sustainable development, fairness in international cultural cooperation, decent work, quite critical, and the rights and status of artists and cultural professionals. Avril works with agencies, governments, and organizations across Africa and the Global South. She is an active member of UNESCO's panel of experts for cultural policy and governance, the Global Creative Economy Council, and the International Cultural Relations Research Alliance. And this is among other hats that she wears. Recently, she also did a research that includes informality and the cultural economy in the Global South. Other projects also include the Not a Toolkit under the EU NIC's Fair Collaboration Project, promoting decent work for the African cultural and creative economy for the ILO, also on China's institutional cultural engagement in Africa, among others. So she really has done the research. For those of us who will be staying on, we will have quite fruitful engagements afterwards at the networking. Last but not least, Ms. Njoki Mohoho, sitting right at this side. Ms. Njoki Mohoho is a cultural architect, executive producer, scriptwriter, educator, and management consultant whose career bridges the creative industries and organizational transformation. With over 22 years in film and television and more than 35 years in management consultancy, she brings a rare combination of artistic vision and strategic insight. In the creative arena, Njoki has been the forefront of African storytelling as producer of Shanga, Mama Duka, and numerous Africa Magic original films for those of you who watch movies. She is a published writer, a member of the International Emmy Awards, and has served as chief juror for the several Pan-African Film Festival and awards. A notable alumni of the New York Film Academy at Universal Studios, she has played a leading role in shaping the continent's creative ecosystem. Her biography is quite long. I will stand here and take up a lot of your time if I went through it, but just that preview alone should tell you the type of well-rounded speaker we will hear from this evening. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, let us give a warm Namibian welcome to our guests, especially those that flew in just for this event. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Abigail, for that highlight and, of course, introducing our speakers. Aren't we fortunate to be in their presence today? Thank you so much for being here. We now welcome Dr. Nangola Wanja, the CEO of the Namibia Investment Promotion and Development Board. It is important to note, in addition to her profile, that Dr. Wanja has been at the forefront of driving Namibia's investment narrative, ensuring that innovation, entrepreneurship, and creativity becomes pillars of our economic future. Doctor, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon. Is it evening now? When does the afternoon end? Is it at 18 hours? Okay, fine. If you say so, let us start over. Good evening. This side is full of people, but I heard this side and not this side. Good evening. So I am not a creative person, but usually I understand creative people to be louder than we accountants. But today I feel like I am louder than all the creatives in the room today. So I want to stand on the protocol observed, but of course recognizing the director of proceedings, as well as the honorable coach that is sitting next to me there. And we have got our deputy governors, With that one, may I stand on the protocol observed? I know that there is a lot of important people, our guests that are going to speak here. Welcome to Namibia. So I know we don't have all night. Although I'm not a creative, there is only one talent that God has given me, is speaking too much. I was told that since I was a child, and I used to not like it until I just said, I'm going to accept it, I'm going to own it, and I'm going to just say it is a blessing. So I am going to try and speak fast because I am going to speak too much. So the creative sector, and I am really, really excited that Honorable Coach is here. That is the Deputy Minister of Education. So that is how I call him, is Honorable Coach. So if you hear me saying Honorable Coach, I'm referring there to the Deputy Minister. So I'm glad that he is here with us today because he was really the initiator and the driver of the creative sector focus at the Namibia Investment Promotion and Development Board. And therefore, most of what I will tell you today is the work that he has championed, and he had made the rest of us understand the importance of this sector to Namibia. So high level on the industry overview, and that is just looking at the policy and what does creative sector mean. And I'm sure that we all understand here, we have got also professors and more people that work in the industry that understand it better. So I'm not going to do all the definitions, so I will try to stick to the numbers because I'm an accountant and I also need to remain focused on to remain true to my profession. So yes, whether we talk about music, art, entertainment, just imagine a world without any of those. For 1 second, I don't think any one of you want to imagine that world. So I think the other day, Her Excellency was speaking somewhere and said, even me that is dressed here today, it's because of the creative sector. And I really, really made sure that today I dress like a creatively enabled person. Normally, I dress my simple look of an auditor, but today I thought, let's be creative and look colorful today. So, of course, currently, the sector in Namibia contributes about 3,800 jobs, and it contributes to GDP about 1-point-something%. And therefore, we see that there is significant room there for improvement. The creative sector has been identified as one of the priority areas by Her Excellency when she prepared the SWAPO Party Manifesto Implementation Plan, and that has been incorporated into the NDP 6. There are many institutions in Namibia that support the creative sector, and I'm so sure if you look at the few that I've put there, you will say I'm missing quite many, so that is definitely not a comprehensive list. Why does this matter? If we look globally and we look at that sector, it is a huge and significant sector worth $2.3 trillion, contributing 3.1% to global GDP and employing about 30 million people, and that is about 6.2% of the global workforce. So it is a huge industry and it is a huge sector globally. And if you look at the 3% that it is contributing to the GDP of the world, that is what the government is trying to target as a minimum contribution to the Namibian GDP. In Africa, we know that this industry is also really making strides. We know that there are countries that are specializing in the sector, whether it is Nigeria, South Africa, Kenya, and yes, every one of us believe that there is a lot of untapped potential in Africa, from really untapped culture to all the creatives. There's a lot of untapped potential in Africa. From Namibia, I think I've indicated the figures to you already, and that's why it's important. Therefore, at the Namibia Investment Promotion and Development Board, we are driving about 10 sectors for growth. We were tasked with the duty of diversifying the economy of Namibia. The economy of Namibia is currently composed of very few products that are not complex, and what they call our export basket, it's tiny and it's not diversified. So we were tasked since 2021 to implement diversification strategy, and therefore in that diversification, we identified a number of sectors, and the culture and creative industry is one such sector. So why does it matter? The creative sector can be a significant contributor to the economy. So let's start there. And of course, it enables income generation for people that are working in the sector. And it helps promote and market the brand Namibia. Because just imagine if we have got a Namibian artist, a Miss Namibia, every one of those ones goes around the world and they present our culture and they present what we stand for. But above all the other reasons, I'm sure that if I ask you, you will tell me many more reasons. I think to me the most critical one is that it allows people to live their God-given purpose. Nowadays, as parents, when your child tells you, I want to become a musician, you cry first before you say, I love you. I am there in it for you, because you know, oh my goodness, I am going to support this one for the rest of their lives. So we don't want that. We don't want, there's so many people that are doing work that they don't enjoy, that they don't love, just because they want to earn a living, because they cannot earn a living doing what they love. Normally, when I speak to young people and I tell them to identify their God-given purpose, I say, look at what are your talents? What are the gifts that you have? What are the needs around you? And yes, of course, what you do, you must enjoy it. It must contribute to the world, but it must also bring money in your pocket, because you cannot go to ShopRite or anywhere else, like one of the ladies that we invited one year to Technovation said, exposure does not pay a bill. And many times we want to pay people in the creative sector with exposure. So you cannot go to ShopRite and say, here is some exposure, may I please have a Coca-Cola? It's not gonna happen. So we need people to enjoy their God-given talent, to live that purpose, and to be able to make a living and earning expressing themselves. I think that is why it specifically matters. So how has we been doing in Namibia? Over the years, that is the contribution. You can see that if it became consistent, it became consistently low. So there was a time. Now, it doesn't mean that the figures are smaller. It probably could also mean that there are other sectors that are picking up, because you can have a billion today, that is the size of the economy, and one person is making $1 million. But if that economy grows to 10 billion, you can grow to 1.2 million. While you have grown, your contribution to GDP gets lower. So the contribution currently is low, and you can see there it's just stagnating between 1.5 to 1.8 over the many years. But there is growth, and you can see the growth of the sector over the years. So you can see, I was wondering when I was looking at these figures, I wonder what happened between 2011 and 2012, or 2012 and 2013. Because, no, COVID is 2020 and 2021. So I don't know if there was another COVID there, but please research, because something hit that sector around 2012, 2013, and then it started to recover, and it was recovering until COVID came, but you can see now after COVID that it's starting to recover again. So again, it's a sector with potential. It's great to see that it is growing. So what are the challenges that are facing this sector? Limited market access, locally and even more internationally. Lack of incentives and high maintenance cost. If you just want to register your patent or you want to register intellectual property, it is costly. If you want to kind of monetize, yeah, you make it in a business, and now you must keep a company, and you need to make a living just to keep all the records at BIPA, at NAMRA, and so forth. So we know the cost is high, and there are limited incentives. And then, of course, is the funding gap. We don't understand how to fund creativity. Because what do we want? When we fund, we want something we can touch to hold on to, so that when you cannot pay, then we know that we can take your cell phone or your home or whatever. But I cannot take your voice if you cannot pay my bill. So how do I have collateral over that one? But the good news is that there's a lot that is happening internationally. Even the IFC, which is part of the World Bank Group, they are busy looking at creative sector and how to support it. And locally in Namibia, there are funds that are coming up with opportunities and possibilities. And of course, the government has made significant budget available. Then of course, we said there is limited career opportunities, and then there is the next one, which is inability for us to monetize our earnings. I will touch on that one in these interventions. So what we are doing is one of the things that we started to do, and we started earlier than 2024 that I put there. We understood. So when we engage people at Technovation Social, they told us even if they sell their music on various platforms, they are not able to encash their earnings in Namibia, because Namibia as a region has not been prioritized by many of the payment gateways. And therefore, you need to open an account in South Africa, and you need to travel to South Africa to go and collect your money. But then just the cost of traveling and accommodation, you have already used up all the money. So what we have been doing is engaging the various players who are the payment gateways. So between NIPDB, Ministry of Information and Communication Technology, and Bank of Namibia, we have had a lot of communications, including some travels to meet the likes of Apple, Google, PayPal, and so forth, so that we can just tell them to prioritize Namibia. We are making progress, not as fast as we would like, but at least now they know that there's a country called Namibia. It's a country that needs to be prioritized. Some are saying, okay, we understand, we will get there. Some are saying, yes, definitely. So we're saying that the Apple discussion looks much more promising than the others. Google is saying, yes, please look at the Pan-African payment and settlement system that can work for you. And therefore, that is continued effort that we are having. That we are continuing. The other initiative that we have is something we call Technovation Social. And of course, if we had time, Honorable Coach will tell you how he came up with the name of Technovation Social. And that is really how we bring in the technology and the innovation of the creativity together, because we believe that technology is an enabler of the creative industry. And therefore, we started by having awards that we are doing for quite a number of years. So 2021 already, we had the first set of awards. And you can see the picture of Her Excellency was last year when she was still the Vice President, when we invited her to be the keynote speaker at the Technovation of 2024. And from that one, we have taken quite a number of players who have won the Technovation Social globally, so that we can just expose them. And yes, many of them have gotten some kind of, I'm so sure young people will call it gigs or something like that, I hear. So another thing that we started is something we call a productivity task force. Productivity task force is a public-private dialogue platform where you bring the players together to identify issues and to sort out those issues. It's a temporary working group, so we have got that working group, and from that working group, we are talking about the film and creative city, we are talking about the culture and creative industry development, the organization, policy, and governance, so those are the subcommittees, the skills development, those are the subcommittees that we have, and we are having conversations as to how we can support the sector better. So I know that my time is probably running out. So the film and creative city, we are currently running by end of November, I think is the deadline for those that will want to show their interest as a developer of the film and creative city. I think tomorrow we have got the last briefing just for those that have bought the expression of interest and have got any questions. But why are we putting so much emphasis on film? Because film enables all the others. In film, The singers are there, the sound, talk about anything that is part of the designers, clothing. Once you have got the film, all the other players are enabled. And that is why the president, when she was still vice president, and she joined us at Technovation, she told us that since she was a minister of tourism, she had the idea of a film and creative city for Namibia. And we said that we will work with her to drive that project, which is currently we are doing, and it is under the leadership of the Minister of Information and Communication Technology, and we are supporting her in coordinating that. So you can see the industry in Namibia. I'm not going to do that one. The last part of what we are doing about the 23rd to 24th of October, we had what we call NAM-PPF, the Namibia Public-Private Dialogue, the first of its kind, to really bring the president in a conversation with leaders of the private sector. We had a few working groups. One of the working group was CCI, Sport and Tourism, and we are looking at how we can incorporate that one into the task forces that Her Excellency has announced as a result of the NAM-PPF. So there has been some success story. So Jackie Pop, one of the filmmakers who won the award for Technovation in 2024, we took him with us and a number of other players in 2024 to the USA, Los Angeles, and so on. He met quite a number of people that he built relationships with. And as we speak, I think he's currently, he joined us again this year in China with Kaite. He met one of the producers in China, and as we speak, he has been financed by the Chinese embassy and other and the Namibia Film Commission to go and shoot his signature series called Omnahambo Wange. He is currently shooting it in China. So he says the Omnahambo Wange has made it to China. The other one we did, we built a relationship with a company called the Bridge Next Narratives Africa, and that person decided she will want to invite one Namibian musician to go and play at the Apollo, to go and sing at the Apollo Stadium in the USA on the margins of the UNGA last year. And she asked us to go out, and they recorded. We ran almost like a competition, and they invited Ms. Gideon. She at least earned, she was not only paid with exposure, her accommodation, flights, and so on, of course, were paid, but she also earned a salary for performing at that at that Apollo stadium. And my understanding is that after that one, she has gotten opportunities in South Africa and also some opportunities arising to penetrate the UK market. There are many other stories. I cannot tell all of them, but we are seeing progress. So which means when we take people's hand and we support them, we see progress, and I think that is a thank you.
Thank you, Doctor, for that very insightful presentation and really highlighting the contribution to GDP and, of course, the interventions and opportunities that the NIPDB and the government is supporting the creative industry with. We'll now open the floor for questions to Dr. Wanja. Any questions? Okay, can we have a roaming mic, please?
Is it on? Okay. Hello, Dr. Wanja. My name is Pingana Dax. I'm a graphic designer and a filmmaker. I've been an active film producer since like 2018, 2019 there. I also work for the Ministry of International Relations and Trade. So I I just wanted to find out from NIPDB, when you spoke about the payment platforms overseas, PayPal's and so on, I just wanted to find out what has the progress been for interterritorial payment gateways for smaller Southern African countries, such as ours, and just perhaps finding out if there's a way that we could perhaps partner with other African countries that have the same problems as we have with getting payment done. And I also wanted to really bring up the fact that, honestly, African youth are the reason why platforms like TikTok are as big as they are, but we don't get paid for our work at all. And for me, especially knowing that I am a working creative, it's very painful to see people who are probably some of the best in the world at what they do just deciding to give up. I feel like this is a really, really important thing, justice-wise, worldwide, because it doesn't make sense that we are being worked like workhorses and basically we're just dancing for other people's entertainment. But somebody else gets to copy either our ideas or our looks or anything like that, and we don't see anything, not even from broadcasting it. So I really feel like it's very, very important that this gets solved as soon as possible. Thank you.
Doctor, you can take that one for now.
Okay, thank you very much. I think there is a lot of comment in there, and maybe just a simple question. So there is a lot of activities and initiatives. Back home, the Bank of Namibia is also looking at how do we have instant pay? How do we enable payment gateways for our people locally? And yes, I think I indicated there, for example, Google Pay referred us to this African platform that we are having conversation on. As a matter of fact, we are engaging with MasterCard. And again, it is not even just about the creative, it's even about the informal sector. If I can look at that one, and maybe with a distraction point, when we had a conversation with MasterCard one day, they said, okay, tell me, how much do you think the tourists that come to Namibia, and this is especially, even let's just look for whether it is people that are selling small stones, whether it's people that are selling arts and craft, they say, how much money do tourists leave your country with? And it is just because of the inability to collect money. And I find that payment is so out of my way. And I was thinking about it like, just try to get me Oshivambo dress. It's completely not coming to me. I need to make an effort. So we need to find a way of making sure that our people, that creative sector, informal sector, are more in our faces than hidden somewhere there, and we need to go and look for them. And I think, yes, there's a lot of awareness. It's always a good thing. There's a lot of talk. They say what gets talked about gets done. And yes, there's a lot of activities that have started. Like I said, probably not as fast as we'd like them to, but definitely fast enough. So there is an event called the Africa CEO Forum. It's in May every year. And now also, I could not make it this year, but some of my colleagues went. And the CCI sector was also center stage at the Africa CEO Forum. And NIPDB, as an IPA, was selected by the IFS to be one of the 8 investment promotion agencies in Africa that they are working closely with, because we have spoken to them, we met them, we told them what we want to do. And therefore, whatever is available there, at least now we know. We are known, we are reaching out, and hopefully we will solve it sooner than later. But I agree with you, we need to do it very, very fast. Because the unemployment that we have in the country can also be reduced significantly when we enable our people and their businesses.
Thank you, Doctor.
Okay.
Just take 2 more short questions. We are almost out of time, so 2 more questions, and then we move on with the program. Thank you.
Evening, everybody. Josie Joss, entertainer and media expert. I only want to ask a question based on something you said, Doctor, and that's the issue about the film city, or this film and creative city, because I want to understand how this is going to pan out, because we should not be carried away by the thought that the creative city or a film city would definitely carry the music side of things, because we have seen that little is really coming from our film industry into the space of the music industry, and that is globally a challenge, because I need to have a conversation with the filmmakers, because synchronization needs to happen and I need to protect my copyright there. But the challenge is I want to understand how this film and creative city is going to look like, because I probably would not want to have to go to that film city to record my album because that's not going to work for me. And studios, in terms of that, don't work for a lot of artists to go to a film city to record. So if it's just a film city for the film city with music studios for the film production, I understand, but I would love to hear, how's this film city gonna look like? Or we don't have a set design yet, but do we have an idea of how it's going to look like?
Thank you. Well, that is moving. So we call it the Film and Creative City. We have an idea as to what we want to achieve. Of course, we want a thriving culture and creative industry, including music. But of course, like you say, it doesn't mean that we will pull the whole of Namibia to one city and say, every creative person, you are now designated in this place. So currently, what we have sent out, we call it expression of interest. Because the first thing that we have said is government is not going to build a film and creative city. So it must be a city that is an economic hub, and it must make economic sense. And that's why we want to partner with a private sector player. So the expression of interest that we have given out is developers who will then come with the design. They will do the feasibility study. They will study what is happening internationally. And therefore, the first thing is just to find out, is there somebody out there who is willing to partner with government on this concept? At least the good news is there are some bodies, because at least people have collected the expression of interest and people have attended the meetings. And yes, we made the cost not $10 just because we don't want everybody to collect it. We want to make sure that the person who gets it, who collects the bid, is somebody who is serious, and therefore we are having that conversation. So I cannot tell you yet today that this is what it looks like. There is a lot of focus on film, whether it is location shooting. We do want to have more blockbuster movies here, but we also want to promote our culture there, and there's a tourism aspect and so on. So yes, but like I said, maybe let me not say what it looks like, because it could probably be different by the time the people that collect the bid come with the idea, and maybe they will tell you, no, the film city is something that is different, let's have it this way. So at this stage, we expect the people that came up with that one to see which one of them will give us the best proposal as to how to deal with it.
Thank you, Doctor. We have one last and also very short question. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. My name is Angelika Schroeder. I'm talking as an artist now. My specialization is I'm a dance expert and also a performer. And I've listened to Doctor, and thank you so much. You have said exposure do not pay a bill. You've said also don't understand, or I would say there's many of the funders do not understand how to fund the creatives. So I wanted to know, what is the responsibility of NIPDB? Will this eventually create documents or standardized documents for the creative artists, which we can follow at the end of the day, seeing that how much you're involved? So is it possible to have that black blueprint to say this is how much artists can be paid, or at least start from a standpoint of view what you are basically researching and seeing and starting to feel the field? Will that eventually turn into a document that will help the artists to be able to standardize their works and to, when they go out performance, that guides them?
So it's a very good question. So NIPDB as an organization, will not set out specifics for sector. So what we do, we play a coordinating role. So for example, that public-private dialogue that we have, that we call a productivity task force, our role is to bring the players together. And we have got the representative of NASCAM and so on and so forth. And then together, between them and the government, the regulators and the policymakers, they will identify challenges, they will make recommendations, and as necessary, if a law needs to be written, it gets written. If a policy needs to be written, it gets written, and therefore that committee. And the good news is, it is an open platform, so it is not closed for anybody to come and attend. So you are welcome. We will communicate the dates if you are interested. We normally have what we call a productivity task force every Friday between 11 and 1 o'clock. There are various ones. So for now, we are on a break because we were busy with NAM-PPF. We will start next year, but we will let you know so that you can be part of the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wanja, once again. I think we've set the scene for the rest of the program as well. Our next speaker, ladies and gentlemen, brings both academic depth and creative passion. Please help me welcome Ms. Avril Joffe, UNESCO Chair for Cultural Entrepreneurship and Policy at the Wits University. She will share insights on the value of arts and culture, reminding us that art is not just an expression, but also infrastructure for social and economic transformation. Ms. Avril, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for that welcome. Wonderful to be here at a university. I miss my days at university, having retired from full-time faculty. But I now hold the UNESCO chair at the School of Governance at University of Wits. And I'm particularly there because I think these conversations have to widen beyond what I call our echo chamber, beyond talking only to the culture and creative sector and talking like we are doing here today with banks, with investment promotion agencies, with people thinking about infrastructure, urbanization, housing issues, informality, decent work, and so on. And I think that's the only way this culture and creative sector is going to thrive for the future. So all protocol observed. Wonderful to be here. Thank you to the Bank of Namibia for the invite. I really feel very honored to be standing here. And what I want to talk about today is really, I guess we should have coordinated our talks, but that was a fabulous talk, by the way. Thank you very much for that talk, because I think it set the stage about the possibilities of when you have agencies like, I can't say that name, NIPDBDD, whatever. But, you know, when you have agencies like that that are doing such fabulous work and facilitating dialogue, which I think is the most important thing, I think the creative sector often feels not heard, feels misunderstood, and that opportunity, I think, is absolutely vital. And so well done. And kudos to you for running that with that. So what I want to talk about is a little bit about that as well, but I want to really focus in on how do we think about the value that arts and culture gives us in our societies. And talk particularly about the African creative economy, because there's been a lot of hype around it, about its possibilities. We heard a few examples earlier on about people that are making it in other countries, people that are getting on international stages, but we know that that hype is all it is. It's hype. Actually, the African creative economy is struggling. It's struggling for a whole range of reasons that if we don't put attention onto that and recognize the foundational value that culture has to our societies, and then have public policies that support that, we're not really going to move forward. So, you know, one of the things about the African creative sort of economy is that it's about economic growth, yes. It's about goods and services. It's about export. But really, where does that come from? It comes from an inspiration derived from heritage, from traditional knowledge, from artistic elements of our cultural expression. And we can't ever forget that. If we do not support all of that, we will not have the creative economy on the continent. We do not have anything distinctive about our creative economy. So we have to constantly think, well, how do we support the foundational value of our creative economy? And that's by supporting heritage, traditional knowledge, values, and systems of behavior and practice that we draw inspiration from for why we have the forms of dance we have today that are lauded everywhere, why we have the movies, the scripts that make the movies interesting, why we have the lyrics and the beats of the music. All of that comes from a deep recognition of our rich cultural heritage. So that's the first point I want to make. The second point is that, and I can't see the slides, there are too many flags. It's bolstered by basic and tertiary business support services and a legislative and policy environment that really gives us the institutional realm in which we need to work. Those institutional values are underpinned by what we call a value chain or a value network. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that value chain and value network, which we have to understand, because digital technologies are altering our value chains that we've become knowledgeable about and are disrupting the ways in which we do our work. And that's happening across the board, and whether your country has taken on digital technologies in a big way or not, you are part of that digital revolution. One of the things that I like about the slide, the picture on the right-hand side, is that it starts giving some idea of the intersections, the interrelationships in our society that come from arts, culture, and heritage. Thank you. Are you going to move this? Thank you. I should have probably had my own presentation in front of me. So what are the key characteristics of the African creative economy? Number one, it's vibrant, we know that. It's culturally diverse, it's exciting. And across all 5 regions of the African continent, North Africa, West Africa, Central Africa, East Africa, Southern Africa. But very different in each of the regions, and very different within a region between countries, and very different in the countries between urban and rural, and very different depending on if it's a metro city or a small city, and very different if it's a rural area or a peri-urban area. So we cannot talk about it really in one breath. We need to do deep research. We need to really understand what's going on. We also know that artists, creatives, and cultural organizations and creative businesses are largely unsupported by policy. And this is a critical concern for all of us working in the culture and creative space. There's wonderful examples where increasingly, for example, in all the national development plans across the continent, you'll see cultures mentioned, but often only culture as a way of life or culture as identity, not the culture and creative industries, not the creative economy, not the digital sides of it. And most countries don't have full value chains, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about value chains in a second. And our education system, which I believe is fundamental to having a strong ecosystem for culture, is not supporting not only the training of arts disciplines, but not supporting people to think about their discipline as a potential business opportunity, and not supporting people to understand heritage and each other's heritage, and not supporting people to really understand intercultural dialogue. So this is what the education system should be taking on, to really understand that not only the economic impact, but the social impact, the cultural impact, the recreational impact. And most of why we have a fundamentally wonderful creative sector is because of NGOs that are unfunded, that rely on international money. That is not okay for the independence of the African idea of a culture and creative sector. So for that reason, I think it's really important that we think about all these things. You know, I've already said this. There's so much hype about the African creative economy. Everybody talks about the new gold. This is the new gold is not mines, it's not gold, it's not diamonds, it's not oil, it's not gas. It's creativity. It's people and their creative energy. Well, what does it actually mean when you don't have the policies to support that? What does it mean when you don't have the funding and financing to ensure that creatives can earn a decent living from being a creative? What does it mean when your education system has bypassed you? This is the reason we have the vibrancy of the creative economy on the continent is because of ordinary people with talent who, despite anything and everything thrown at them, still keep going. The perseverance, the resilience of the creatives is phenomenal. And that's where we have to really harness some power and think about what we should be doing about it. And, you know, one of the things that I think is so fundamental is I'd call it the hexahelix of stakeholders involved in the culture and creative sector. That is academia, fundamental, government, community, intermediaries, the media, corporates and financing. So there are 6, that's why it's called a hexahelix. It's no longer the triple helix. It's a hexahelix because that's where the culture and creative sector comes from, where it gets supported. So we need to be thinking about how do we ensure that all those problems that we see on that slide, where the culture and creative economy of Africa has been unsupported, where it gets more support from the various stakeholders, and it's not just government, it's not just corporates or banks, it's every single stakeholder has a role to play, including the community. We've just done a design policy for South Africa, where we looked at the designs that come out of townships in South Africa, where people really have nothing. And roads are not tarred, housing is not insured, children are not always at school, there's gender-based violence, and so on. People design their own futures. This understanding that it's people who have that power, and how do we harness that? So one of the things that I felt important to say today is that it's not the new gold that is just magically going to give us wealth. We have to design policies to ensure that it happens. We have to meet with each other. We have to have the dialogues we've heard about. We have to bring all the partners together so that, yes, we can potentially create jobs and have economic growth. That's the economic value of culture. It's only one of the values. Please look at that slide carefully. It's only one of the values. And because of that, each value creates a different need for different financing, different forms of grants, different forms of money that needs to flow. So what kind of money do you need for economic growth? You need seed capital. You need the collateral money. You need soft loans. You need government to come and bolster up the ability of banks to come to the party. We need to get people banked. There are so many creatives who don't have bank accounts, right, basically. You need subsidized lending instruments. So those are the kind of finance you need to support the economic value. We also have the potential to strengthen identity, sense of belonging, sense of self, inclusion, the resilience of communities. Just look at what happened in Jamaica recently with the hurricane. You know, the reason why people could come quickly was the intermediaries in the culture and creative sector setting up shop to support each other, right? That form of community resilience is so necessary for all our economies. If you don't have a sense of social capital between each other, if we don't have that, we're not going to have the economic growth sustainable in the future. And then for that, you need different kinds of money. You need grants. You need social grants. You need development grants. You need educational grants. You need money that comes from CSI and marketing budgets of the corporates to support the social value. the potential to enhance self-esteem, what was said about this, the God-given talent of ordinary people, that sense of self, that ability to be a critically engaged citizen of the world, which comes from participating in arts and culture. What kind of money do you need for that? For that, you need basic grants. Our island just came up with a basic income grant. Every artist gets a bit of money every month so they can create. Because it takes many, many creations before you have a success. We don't understand that in our sector. We think it's going to be like making a table. You know, we know how to make a table. We make one, it's going to sell. You make one movie, it's not going to sell. But you make 20, one might sell. You make, 20 songs, one might be great. So that risk that comes with our sector, it has to be understood in the forms of financing that we think about. The potential to improve the image of countries, we know about that. Placemaking, a sense of the brand Namibia, brand South Africa, brand Kenya, and not just the country, but the city, the region. There's so much work that can be done there. And there, that we call that institutional value. The value that you get from having a theatre in your city. Whether you go to that theatre or not, it gives value to the whole city. Whether you yourself choose to go, it doesn't matter, right? We call that institutional value because it's a value that comes and that needs long-term government funding. And I would include in that intermediaries in the cultural and creative sector, the people who create space to buffer fragmented workers, individualized workers, and power. Power, whether it's political, or power, whether it's finance. Those intermediaries need long-term financing, not one-year project grants, but institutional money that keeps them going year after year after year after year. This idea that a theatre can one day be sustainable. Nowhere in the world, except maybe the West End. Are theatres sustainable? Everywhere in the world, theatres need money every year. So this idea of a project grant that finishes in 1 year, or even is given for 3 years, and then somehow magically you need to be self-sufficient, self-sustaining, it's nonsense. It doesn't work. And we shouldn't try and make that happen on the African continent either. We don't have the purchasing power. We don't have the means. We are not rich countries. We filled all of our countries with poverty, inequality, unemployment. So the idea that people will pay for theatre or pay for music concerts all the time is also, we need to get rid of those ideas. We need to understand why we invest in arts and culture, not because it has a return on investment, but because it's good for the soul of the country. It's the only thing that keeps us sane and together. It's the only thing that makes us critically engaged individuals that want to know each other. It's the only thing that's going to give us the social cohesion we need to have a vibrant economy. So, sorry, I also talk too much and I better keep myself going here. So the cultural cycle, is, I think it's a really important concept to think about what is the value chain. So in each sector, we think about the beginning, the creation, the production, the circulation, the distribution of the product or the service, the delivery mechanism. Is it in the streets? Is it a street market? Is it in a theatre? Is it in a concert hall? Is it in a movie screen? Is it on the broadcasting channel? Is it on the platform? Where are you seeing it? And how does the audience receive it? So all of that is really important. But we also know that the digital world has turned that upside down. And we now have what we call a cultural value network, where if you are a creator, you can talk directly to your consumer, right? The consumer is king. The consumer tells you what you should be doing next, because they are the ones who give you the likes, who make sure that you become popular, right? How does TikTok work, etc.? How does YouTube work? How does anything work anymore? It's about individualized relationship with your consumer. So that's firstly, the first part. But in every part of the value chain, you have digital technologies that have disrupted the ways in which things used to happen. You can have studios now at your desk for music production. You don't need a fancy studio anymore because we've cheapened the costs of production through innovation, new technologies, and so on. So that changes then the kinds of infrastructure, what we call cultural infrastructure, that is needed by society. Is that only 5 more minutes? Wow, okay, I'm moving on. So on the continent, what we really need to do is draw from conventions, charters, agendas that are made on the continent and that come from UNESCO, like the African Charter for Cultural Renaissance, a really fabulous text, so small, so short, but so poignant and to the point, dealing with everything from heritage and libraries and language through to digital technologies. The African Union has a plan of action for the culture and creative industries, again, a really sophisticated document talking about African ownership, talking about having regional value chains in the continent, on the continent, and not thinking that every country should have its own value chain. We should be working together collaboratively. It's not really a problem that Namibia has to rely on South Africa, because South Africa also has to rely on Nigeria, and Nigeria has to rely on its neighbors, and so on and so forth. But this is what creates an integrated continent, which is what we want. The UNESCO recommendation on the rights and status of artists remains a fundamental text that talks to us about decent work, talks to us about fairness in wages, and also talks about representation of artists and the importance of all artists being represented by a body. An individual artist has no real voice, but a collection of artists that is beginning to talk to the whole community, that has a powerful voice, needed for lobbying, needed for talking to the powers that be. And obviously the African Union Agenda 2063, which has a very important point talking about Africa with a strong cultural identity, common heritage, values, and ethics. Gives us the basis in our own countries to ask our governments, what are you doing about that? You've signed on to the African Agenda 2063. What are you doing to help us have a strong cultural identity, a vibrant common heritage, and so on? And the last point I want to make is that culture is not only a driver of development. Yes, of course, it's a driver of development. We've heard a lot about how it can create jobs, how it can contribute to GDP, but that's not the job of culture. It's a byproduct of participating in culture, of having cultural sectors, cultural industries. It's very important. It gives everything we see on that slide, including the spillovers, strengthening social capital, fostering trust in public institutions. And this was language that the UNESCO came up with in 2011 at the Hangzhou summit in China, to say culture is not only a driver of development, it's also an enabler of development. And this is where really I want to focus the attention, because I think it's so important. As a driver of development, yes, there's economic impact. We know that 70% of music consumed on the continent is local music. We hear about fabulous, there are wonderful studies around the continent about good cases where you see this kind of economic impact. It has foreign exchange and so on. And these are the things that we all focus on. What are the characteristics of the culture and creative industries? So I'm not going to spend time on it. What I want to talk about is culture as an enabler of development. How we use culture not only to democratize our access and disseminate the benefits of culture, but develop what we call cultural democracy. Really where the practice of culture gives us our sense of having a sophisticated system of governance for culture and for our societies. And these are always based on our historical, social, and contextual conditions. And there's a transformative power to culture because it strengthens independence. It gives us sovereignty. UNESCO's 2005 convention is very clear. Every government has a right to protect and promote its own culture. Why does it say that? Because culture is not a good like anything else, like other commodities. And that's why this language of culture as a driver and enabler of development moves away from this dual nature of culture that says it's about culture and the economy. No, it's saying no. Yes, it can drive development, but it enables our societies to function as with well-being and fulfillment of each individual. And this social and intrinsic impact of arts and culture is really significant, and I'm not going to spend time on it. But I want to talk about the future as we end. The future for arts and culture. We know that a robust and strong African creative economy is good for all of society. And we have to remind government of that. When they say we don't have budget for you, what are they saying? It's like when we had the National Development Plan in South Africa, culture wasn't present. And they said, no, don't worry, you're going to be in the next round when we're dealing with footwear and something else. We're not footwear. We can't be associated with footwear. We are about the vision of a society. We hold the element in our sector of how we think about ourselves. So the African creative economy really can deliver the societal stability we want, the economic growth, and the skills for the future. This vision of a shared future is fundamental, and it comes out of our work as culture and creative people. And it's really possible to, reconcile the symbolic weight of culture with economic opportunities. This is not either or. This is both and. So I'm not saying don't focus on the economics, but I'm saying don't ever forget that we have to focus on the social and the intrinsic values and the recreational value and so on. So finally, I just want to say that the policy frameworks really have to be about making the connections to support culture as foundational to society. That it's good for society, we need education and training, it's good for citizens, for health and well-being, it's good for the economy, it creates employment. It's not only about employment. If we focus on the one, we're going to miss the other. And we're only going to focus on that which is commercial, that which has the ability to create the jobs and the income potential. We have to really think about all of it. And we have to think about how this sector can help us understand climate risk and adaptation. And the rise of the global creative climate movement has shown us that a local and homegrown culture and creative sector gives the resilience that the community needs. And we're all facing that. Drought in our neighborhoods. We don't have the storms and the floods, but we have the drought. We need to think about what the culture and creative sector can do about that. And we need to mobilize all those stakeholders I mentioned. Education and training, number one for me, and the private sector, number two. Everybody else we know about. We know about government. NGOs are doing their own thing anyway. And we need to support them too, though. And the international development agencies that do so much on our continent to support culture and creative sector. So we did a recent foresight report. I know I'm running out of time, or I might have run out of time, but we did a recent foresight report about what are the skill needs for the youth in the culture and creative economy of Africa going forward. How do we think about how cultural cooperation can support those skill needs? And we did a big study, but critically what we found is that multi-year investment is fundamental. Hybrid learning models that maximize impact across disparate contexts. We have to give people the opportunity to come in and out of learning, because not everybody can be a full-time learner. We just know that. We have to think about the soft skills and life navigation skills. It's not about knowing the technology, the digital technologies, or knowing the IP. It's knowing when to employ them, how to use them, when to be worried about how your creative content is being manipulated or taken away from you. That knowledge, that is deep, what we call metacognitive knowledge, that those of us in universities talk about a lot. But it's about soft skills and life navigation skills we have to think about. And it's about multilateral networks that can create opportunities for the organic development and partnerships. I love what's going on here about the Bank of Namibia, the Investment Bank, and so on. I think this is exactly what we should be doing. And just to end on this quote, the availability of technologies is not in itself sufficient. The need to have a credit or debit card in order to complete transactions represents a barrier for some creators. Even opening a bank account may prove a constraint. And I thought I should end that, given I'm at a Bank of Namibia talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Averill, for really giving us that global overview, regional, and of course, bringing it back home to Namibia. The floor is now open for just 2 questions. We're almost out of time. One question over there, Franz. Please just raise your hand. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Patrick Sam. I am a specialist within the cultural sector. Averill, thank you very much for an amazing presentation. My question is around the framing of the sector in the country. As you can see, we're struggling to call it culture. We want to be more creative. What is the solution to this at a national level? How do we frame it, and what could be the potential outcome if we just say creative industries versus reinforcing that it is a relationship between culture and creativity, and what could be the potential outcome of that? Is it somehow embedded in inferiority complex that we have that also then affects the trade figures when it comes to cultural products? If we're looking at, Africa and Middle East, 1.5% to global trade, and also lastly, how does it affect the idea of mobility for young people in how they understand the values of their cultures, speaking about and framing it within the value context?
Thank you. I think you can take that one, then we'll move on to the last.
Thanks, Patrick. Nice to see you again. I think these questions it's a fundamental question. Every country should think about how to define this. We cannot just import concepts from the global north and think they work in our context, because they don't. Right? So the creative industries came about in the UK as a particular reason. Right? There was a diminishing amount of money going to arts, culture, and heritage. There was opportunities to find new monies in economic departments and trade ministries, and the prioritizing of the creative industries was a way to access different finance forms. That's it. And there was deindustrialization happening in the UK. It was a different geographic context, a different process of industrialization. We have to think about what is useful for us. So I remembered working with our government in 1996. We talked about the cultural industry. We didn't even know the word creative industry. It hadn't been coined. It really got coined in 97, right? There was one study done by Australia called Creative Nation, where it was about the creative expression. But I think fundamentally, by talking only about the creative industries or having a ministry of the creative economy without having also a ministry of arts, culture, and heritage is a problem. And I don't think it's a problem that our ministries are combined. Arts, culture, heritage, education, sports, youth, whatever it is. It's about what is the priority focus for arts and culture sector, what is priority focus for the culture and creative industries. So every country needs to come up with its own definition that makes sense to it. One of my students, for example, did his study about Malawi, looking at how the reformulation of the sector into the culture and creative industries absolutely destroyed trust between government and civil society, for example. So we need to be mindful of how the creatives respond, how artists respond, how NGOs respond. We want to do, this can't be done. This is not a department that is like health. The health ministry builds clinics, builds hospitals, trains doctors, trains nurses, and voila, you have a health system. We don't have that in arts and culture. Whatever the ministry does doesn't mean you're going to have a vibrant culture sector. That depends on people. Ordinary people, citizens, private citizens, NGOs, private sector, theatres. Yes, government has a role to play, but it cannot do the work of the culture and creative artists and creatives. That has to be done by individual artists and creatives. So I'm also always talking to government about why are you duplicating the work of the sector? Why are you also running a festival? when the sector can run the festival better. They understand the music, they understand the film, they understand the dance, whatever the festival's about. Why is it, these are things we have to address with our own governments. So it's about not duplicating, it's about having definitions that work for your country. And there's no reason why each country can't define it differently. The latest UNESCO statistics framework that just came out at Mondiacult now in October actually encourages each country to come up with using the framework, but come up with its own definitions and its own set of priorities of what kind of information it should be collecting. Not every country has to collect the same information. We're going to be drowning in statistics and we won't know what to do with it. We won't understand what its significance is. So every country should move at the pace it needs to move, but bring the creative and artists and NGOs with you while you do that. Thank you.
Good evening, Avril. Angelica here.
Hi.
I have 2 points. One, you have mentioned seed capital, which is a great economic and financial value, but I specifically would like to speak about audience attendance. In Namibia, we struggle with that immensely. And I just wanted to know, what will your take be in order to improve that? I know we're talking about the value, but that is part of the value. So how can we overcome it? We talk about have it more in schools, in education, so that the child can grow up and get used to go to a theater, or not just to a theater, an outdoor space. But what can you advise us on that? The second one is, I'm not talking about, we have mentioned indigenous knowledge. We have mentioned heritage. But when we come to classical, and we're talking about Western classical, we're talking about the Trinity and Royal Academy, which is very, very, very alive here in Namibia, and a lot of people are doing external examinations. How does that fit in? Because you were talking about collaboration. We all need to collaborate. But I have more feel that we're looking at our traditions, which is very important as Namibia being an African country, but the classical part is very much alive for us. If you look at we've been a German colonial, the College of the Arts used to be a conservatoire. There's history in the country. So how do we take that also becomes part of this creative industry that I always thought was contemporary?
Great questions again. So I think, talking about the first one, audience development, I think you answered your own question. It's really about taking kids from a very young age and developing an appreciation of the arts, an appreciation of their culture, an appreciation of their heritage, taking them to museums, to theaters, to galleries, to dance performances. And that's the only way to develop a generation of people who want to attend and are willing to pay for it. Because people are willing to pay for all sorts of strange things. Alcohol, nobody's got no money for alcohol. Nobody's got no money for football, right? But we suddenly have no money when it comes to arts and culture, right? So we need to, and that's a lack of appreciation. There's no history of doing that, of enjoying other people's culture. That's the other problem. We enjoy our own culture, maybe. We enjoy a performance that is unique, that has come from overseas, right? But we don't enjoy each other's culture. And that's because we haven't learned to appreciate it. We don't understand it. We don't know where it comes from because it's never taught. It's assumed we know it, but we don't. So that's number one. Number two, about classical music. I think classical music gives us some tips about how you train kids for a future career in arts. And we need to use that system that is working and say, well, how do we repeat that in other parts of our cultural expressions? But also, how do you fuse the traditions? How do you create fusion music? So, for example, the Johannesburg Philharmonic Orchestra periodically does wonderful performances where they have a classical tradition. You have Chopin and Beethoven and whatever, Tchaikovsky, and there'll be an African piece of music performed by the same orchestra who've had to learn to use all the instruments that are used in traditional African music. And that is about them as an adult developing an appreciation for other cultures, but also to help the audience recognize the synergies between those traditions. So I think we need to use the best of those systems, the Western classical tradition, to help tell us how to train people in local cultural traditions. Because I think we can't keep having this system where you have high arts and community arts. That's not functional in our society. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Averill, for that very thought-provoking, of course, presentation and engagement with those present today. Ladies and gentlemen, to help us keep up with time as well, our final speaker for this evening is a creative powerhouse, a storyteller who has shared narratives across Africa's film and, of course, television industry. Please help me welcome Ms. Joki Muhoho.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Good evening, everybody. Distinguished guests, brilliant academics, daring creatives, wise policymakers, and very curious bankers. I have to greet you in my language, Jambo. You know, yes. Asante sana. And that is all about culture, exporting your own culture. The same reason I'm also wearing a Kenyan designer. And thank you for the Bank of Namibia that you gave me. If you could raise that bag cover, leather from Namibia. I will have to do a lot of speed talking. You're wondering why I'm moving around, because I'm a creative, I'm a storyteller, and when I start talking, my legs and my hands move. So that's why I told them I can't stand behind a podium. Thank you to Dr. Wanja. By the way, Wanja is a Kenyan name, just spelled very differently. And you've really helped me, and also my new sister, Jaffe. There's a lot you have talked about that helps me move a little bit faster. So brace yourselves, move a little bit in your seat, stretch a little bit, because I'm going to take you through a very rigorous, and also very first, I'm going to first talk and all that. Now, my role is actually to talk more on what the Bank of Namibia, whom occasionally I will abbreviate to BON, in catalyzing their industry, the creative industry in Namibia. And let's deal with some realities. First of all, like you had, I'm a left brain, right brain person. And Dr. Wanja, we have something in common, Pricewaterhouse background. That's why I started my career as a management consultant. But I'm not in finance. I am not an accountant. I'm actually not a banker. But as a management consultant, I've worked a lot with these industries. Actually, as I talk right now, my colleagues back at home are doing work for the Central Bank of Kenya, but recruitment, nothing to do with the creative industry. So, in my talk, I'm going to combine my left brain and the right brain, and so you're going to hear a lot of cocktail of things. So brace yourselves. Bank of Namibia, you already have your national mandate, like any other central bank in any other country. There is a mandate that you have. I'm going to look at how can you, in this straitjacket mandate, create an environment that is conducive for the creative industry. You see, when bankers hear the word creative or creatives, they run for their risk manual. These are risky people to deal with. Let's flip through the manual, and most of the time to show how it cannot happen. What about us creators? When we hear the word banker, investors, finance institutions, we go for paracetamols and antacids because we know it's going to be rough. Yeah. So how do we do this? I'll skip some slides just because my colleagues have covered. I see a 4-point turn, a 4-point role, a 4-point strategy for the Bank of Namibia on how to deal with the creative industry. So when you think about it, tonight, there's people who go for risk manuals, and there's people who go for paracetamols. They're right here in this room as one tribe. What do I mean by one tribe? Because we cannot, well, one thinks calculator, the other one is thinking canvas. And we've got to find a way of bringing these two together. Why? Because we need each other. The creative economy cannot thrive without finance. We know that. And guess what? The finance industry cannot diversify without creativity. So we are birds of a feather. We need creativity in different ways. So this is not a marriage of convenience. It is human destiny, whether we like it or not. It's human destiny. So for me, by day, I'm a management consultant, and by night, I'm a filmmaker immersed in emotions and storytelling and imagination. So my talk today, I shall be a storyteller. I will talk at times from facts, and then I go to my soul, and I speak from imagination and from emotions. So bear with me. Our times will sound like a cycle. That's okay, because we creators at times, there's a very thin line between normalcy and insanity. And I believe Africa's future belongs to those who can dance between these two. Those who can make imagination profitable and systems so full that they are linking with people. So I stand here as proof that it is possible to balance your soul and your balance sheets. So Namibia, my friends, stands at the edge of global gold mine. And again, like I said, I'm a storyteller. Would you believe in the last 3 months I've attended 3 major creative economy forums? Just 48 hours ago, is it 48 or 3 days ago, I was in Lagos. As soon as I get back home, I'll be going to Ghana. Guess what? Most of these forums are actually sponsored by developed countries. A big US government one in Kenya. A huge one, the biggest creative forum that I've ever come across, sponsored by the French government, to the point where even President Macron was the one giving us the invitation speech virtually. What does that say, dear Namibians, dear Africans? There's a new Scrabble for Africa. Now they want our creative economy. What are they seeing that we are not? We should ask ourselves that again and again. They are all here trying to get it. So, creative industry is not an art for art's sake. This is art for nation's sake. And I think Joffe has said it very well. It's jobs, exports, tourism, and pride, all woven through one powerful thread, imagination. We are making money from human imagination. What other bigger asset can any country have but its own people? So we are putting money in imagination to make more money. The question is, we and the Bank of Namibia, are we ready to bank on this? So, my 3 points here. How can the Bank of Namibia create financial climate where imagination can breathe? How can we unlock this sleeping giant of creativity, not with slogans, but with systems? Systems that unlock this creative industry. Because, my friends, ideas without financing are like zebras without grass. Beautiful striped, but hungry. So, let's be honest about the terrain. Namibia's creatives overflow with talent, yet the ecosystem is also fragmented. not integrated, maybe not as good integrated strategy, scant data, and limited finance. And I believe Dr. Wanja hinted on that. The market is small. Dear Namibians, your total population is even smaller than the population of Nairobi. So no matter how much you produce, how much money are you going to make from those few people who buy from you? So export is critical. Systems, the bank to facilitate systems where you can export to other people. And that was also hinted on in our last page. And too many creatives break out, the request for a creative to develop a business plan and take it to the bank, that is so stressful for most creatives. So, but the bank shouldn't shun us, they shouldn't ignore us, they should enable us even in writing those business plans. Add weak IP protection, scarce access to credit, and the brilliance of the creatives ends up locked in a laptop, collecting dust instead of royalties. The creatives in this room, how many of you have stuff in your computer that has not yet been produced? Hands up. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Why does my computer crash? Because of projects that are in there that have never seen the light of the day. It's not made for your laptop, it's made for export. So BON's job is not to fund movies and paintings and all that. Its purpose is deeper, to create a climate where others invest with confidence. They are not the ones giving us the money, but they create an environment where others have confidence in us, weird people, the creatives, you know. Its mandate, the Bank of Namibia current mandate is regulation, inclusive, literacy, and transformation. I checked it out and summarized it that way. It is a natural backbone for Namibia's creative economy. So we are not saying it's anything very different. We're just saying use imagination in your systems to also cater for us. So if creatives are the engine, then the Bank of Namibia is a transformation system that lets the wheel turn safely and smoothly. Without it, imagination stalls, and with it, Namibia can't move. So, how are we going to do this? Creative economy is not decoration. It is design. It is storytelling that becomes tourism, that becomes music, that becomes export, identity that becomes economic power. Back in Kenya when I was in college, the film Out of Africa was released. It won an Oscar. And within 2 years, tourism became the top earner in the GDP of Kenya through a movie. We'll not even talk about how many jobs were created and all that. Globally, creative economy contributes globally to 7% GDP and employs millions, especially women and youth. So, this is not just culture, it is commerce with a soul. That's the difference. It's commerce with a soul. So, where does BON come in? There you are, the three. Enable. I'm proposing a 4-point formula. Enable, regulate, convene, and de-risk. What do I mean by this? Let's start with enabler. Building systems that let creativity thrive. And how do we do this? There are issues of policy, regulation, and enablement, and I think Dr. Wanja mentioned that. And in each of these, I'm trying to give examples of where there's been a success. Look at what Exim Bank has done, launching the 1 billion Canex Fund, showing how policy recognition at continental level can attract investment into Africa's creative economy. Financial systems, system infrastructure, and inclusion. Here, what do I mean? Simplify banking rules for small and informal creative earners. I've been here in Namibia before. In the audience is my sister, actually, Dr. Wanjiro Mohoho Mini, who's been a lecturer in this university for over 15 years and only recently retired. She's over there. She has nothing to do. She has nothing to do with my invitation here. Actually, when I got the letter, I asked her, is this true? Do they hold symposiums? I told her, do some investigation and let me know whether it's true. So, when I talk of simplifying banking rules as models, KYC, know your customer. Most of these creatives are even down deep in the villages. And then you tell them, bring your business plan and your collateral, and first of all, even the phrases themselves. It's a non-starter. So simplifying, making things easier. Also, we need to give, how do I call it, the approach to everything we do. We make it easier for them to be able to have flexibility. I like to use the example of SACCOs. These are societies where people get together into cooperative groups. I remember when I was young, there was this group of women. Do you have merry-go-round in Namibia? Where women meet for tea, like on a Sunday afternoon, and each brings, let's say $10. Each brings $10, and the host gets the $10. If there are 10 women, then that host has $1,000. And when we meet the following month, we meet at the other lady's house, you take the $10. So what's happening? You are paying your loan of $1,000 from women who trust you by giving you their $1,000. And a bank was created based on that. I think it was a Kenya Finance Women, I forget the full name. Right now, it's one of the biggest local banks. One thing led to the other, and guess what? Women could go to that bank based on the trust that the other women had, based on your Tea Party women who say, yes, you can give her $20,000 loan, and we'll make sure they pay. And it formed a banking system. Imagine if your central bank, your Bank of Namibia, has such simplified systems or taken over, like Jeffrey said, the culture, how people do things, and just building the financing into that. So there's also a Kenya organization that's called FST, Developed Digital Payment System tailored to creatives in the SMEs. Mobile money, I'll be talking about that in a little while. So enablers. Enablers, what are we saying the Bank of Namibia can do? Recognize creatives economy with financial inclusion plans. I think you mentioned their plans. Does it bear a big strategic objectives in your 5-year strategic plan and in your master plan? Simplify digital payments, coordinate partnerships through finance programs, lead with money, look for ways in collecting data, because what gets measured gets funded. Yeah. So, moving on. Now she's telling me, I'm not even halfway through. So, how do we do this? As bank, as an innovator. Let's look at, I've already gone through these points. Let's look at, I said bank as an enabler, now bank as a regulator. So how will it regulate? You regulate with the wisdom that not everybody understands banking systems. You regulate by empowering and with visions. How is this done? This is done through set leading standards for creatives, small businesses, supervise digital payment systems fairly, reform collateral laws to include intellectual property. Personally, I went to my bank long ago. I said, I want to do a TV series. And they said, bring collateral. They said, don't bring land titles. Kenya is so corrupt. You find that that land, maybe there's already a family squabble for it. And cars, there's so much car theft. Don't bring that. So you're left with nothing. So I said, how about this TV series that I'm producing that's going to add up on Maisha Magic? Why don't you take it as collateral? And I was told the central bank doesn't allow you to give a loan based on the same thing you're working on. Doom. That's how I felt. Okay, so I want to give you a quick story. This is real. I met this young man when we're attending the French Forum. I call it the French Forum, but it's a forum for creatives in Africa. It's real. He is a gamer. He is a techie. He designs games. And then you just pay little money using your M-Pesa system, which is a Safaricom mobile phone system, very famous system that has won many awards, like your e-wallet. And Kenyans, East Africans, even up to Ethiopia, who have M-Pesa system, they pay. But now he has lots of friends in France who want to play the games. And these games are culturally they're very educative culturally as well. Now, he can't cross over between M-Pesa and the Safaricom and the Orange mobile phones in France. So he goes and begs his friend for the French people, please can you collect money from the Orange line? Then he goes to Germany, looks for a friend. That is not sustainable business. So how can our banks do the cross-border? There's a lady here who asked that question about the cross-border. So it's one thing to have e-wallet that is easily used within the country. If it cannot be used, surely, Namibians, with 3 million, you need to sell the stuff to us. So your system, to me, this is priority. You have to be able to sell across the borders. So that's his problem, and he's still worried about that. So the bank must regulate. When we say regulate, it's not restrict. It's come up with innovative systems and force and supervise the banking and financial institutions on making sure they execute it, to a point where they can be told 30% of your loans must go to creative industry. And they define what is creative industry. And they are punished by not doing that. The same way in Kenya, if you don't do your 40% local content on TV, you are penalized. Okay, they don't always do it, but at least they shame you. They write to you and shame you for not doing it. Okay, so bank as a convener. And Dr. Wanja, you said a lot of this. The Bank of Namibia should be the convener, like the orchestra conductor, bringing in all the minds, aligning the systems, and catalyzing growth. How can this be done? Because if you want to go fast, you can go alone. But if you want to go further, you have to do it with your banker. So, Bank of Namibia should unite banks, unite DFIs, development finance institutions, all those who come with money from outside and say, well, this is money for this and this. How are we combining this? How are we doing it? The ministries, the fintechs, the creatives. A good example is Nigeria Bankers Committee, which finances Nollywood creatives, or Bank of Ghana, that has worked with telecoms to streamline royalties. So there are some examples across the continent. The degree of success, I cannot ascertain, but at least I know those projects are there. Imagine BON hosting an annual Creatives Finance Idaba, where economists, investors, and artists share one language, progress. Because when creatives enter macroeconomics, policy follows. And I believe, Dr. Wanja, you also hinted on that. BON convenes people, ideas, and institutions, then Namibia will grow. So the final one is de-risking, removing the risk, because bankers always see we creatives as being a risk. Remove the uncertainty to stability. How do we do this? This also has a lot to do with developing risk-based lending frameworks, models, business models that give that. Promote credit guarantees and blended finance. So you take the private sector money, you take the angel funds, you take the grants, you put them together in one basket, then regulate that. Support digital payments reforms. Some countries are stopping at having digital payments from your mobile phone, and they stop there and they say, we are good, we can do this. But they are now long due for reforms. And those creative bonds, imagine the bank releasing creative bonds and banknotes and saying this is just for the creative industry. Also, even when you get your loan, you're only paying the interest till you sell your product, and then you can pay the principal. So, Rwanda has this example. Development Bank has shown it works through the blended finance. BON does not, you cannot survive on subsidies. You cannot survive on a grant here and there. That's not long term. The removing risks must be a structure, because when the wind feels safe, then imagination flies. So what have I talked about in conclusion? My 10 points. Creative credit guarantee facilities. Blended finance funds for creative industry. Intellectual property IP backed with financing model. Digital payments, cross-border settlements platforms, creative bonds and cultural investment notes, revenue-based financing for creatives, digital finance sandboxes. Sandboxes, what do you mean? Controlled experiments. So if each year your bank is actually doing controlled experiment, then we know we are making progress. I say controlled, we are not saying not taking too much risk, but it's controlled. Financial inclusion and macro credit models, creative leasing and equipment financing. I don't know whether the creatives here have problems with equipment. Imagine if the bank, yes, I can see some hands up. Imagine if the bank came up with a model where you get national equipment that is being leased so you don't have to buy it. Creative venture capital, angel fund platforms, and so on. So, what are we talking about? The Bank of Namibia, to enable, regulate, convene, and the risk. And in doing so, we get stability, inclusion, collaboration, and growth. To the bankers, you can dare lead to imagination. Dare to lend with imagination. The creatives, learn the language of finance for pet's sake. You are in an academic institution. I'm also a part-time lecturer at the United States International University, Africa in Kenya. And just the day before I came here, I asked the head of the department, why are the students have at least one module, one subject they share with the bachelors of business or economics class? They need business skills. So it also comes from the trade, from the schools. Policymakers build system where both thrive. When Namibia trades not only in minerals, but in ideas, she will have found her most valuable export, the human brain, the Namibian brain, the imagination. That is your greatest export. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jockey. The floor is now open for, again, 2 questions. Yes, only 2. We're entirely out of time. Let me see some new faces. Okay, I see one over there and one more over there. Josie, we'll see you tomorrow, please.
I think you have to favor her. She's our host.
Yes, no, she has, I think, a comment.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay,
So we'll take
all
the
right.
first question. And
I've also speed talked so much, and I've cut my slides to like half. Yes. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Jockey.
Who's speaking? I like to see the face. Okay.
It's a Wanja from here now, a Kenyan Wanja.
The Kenyan Wanja. Hi,
Kenyan
hi Wanja.
Wanja.
Good to see you. Yes.
Yeah. You mentioned something that I think I want to challenge the Bank of Namibia. Cross-border, they have actually tightened it to a point now it's so difficult to actually do business cross-border, especially banking. And I know my former student is standing next to me here, and I don't know who else is here. But that is one of the challenges, I think, which would make a lot of difference, which you brought up, very, very important.
Yes.
We are 3 million here. You cannot trade with 3 million. You need to move beyond the 3 million if you want to, to do a lot.
Yes.
The PayPal that has been talked about, for as long, I don't know how long I've had that story of PayPal. And I don't know, I went to a conference about 2 weeks ago, it was an issue again. When are we going to allow the creatives here to be able to earn money from YouTube, from whatever?
Yes.
We can't keep singing the same song. And I think it goes back to Bank of Namibia. There's something, they're tightening instead of loosening up. I don't know how maybe that can be sorted.
Let me very quickly respond to that with an example, and the bankers here. M-Pesa, our e-wallet system, which has become world famous. I sat down with one of the bankers. He owns the biggest local bank, which is now even a case study in Harvard. And Dr. Mwangi of Equity, he said, Joki, nobody had done this. We didn't have the system. Central Bank didn't have it. So we formed a task force. And we went to Central Bank and we said, this is what we want. Start working on it. So it also takes very strong task forces and also the creatives to get together. I know we are not like, because we turn up in boardrooms in torn jeans and T-shirts and whatever, and people look at us up and down and they think, you're not boardroom material. So I do have a suit that I wear in those meetings. Then I have my ripped jeans for the day-to-day work. So those task forces, but I hear what you're saying. It's time for the banking industry will not grow until they apply imagination. That's the point. Okay.
Our final question, or comment, rather.
Thank you very much, Madame Muho, for your presentation. I'm really thrilled that you touched on the role of education in the creative arts sector. When I concluded the welcoming remarks, I mentioned remain human for that purpose.
Yes.
Because as a human being, you need to realize your gifted talent. But for it to make sense, you need to monetize it. So as the university, Namibia University of Science and Technology, we saw that as a priority. We have established an innovation center, a social innovation hub, which we call NAST High. And with that, the sole purpose is to create ideation, which could come from the social setting, such as the arts and culture. So we are therefore inviting all the creatives here possible to pitch. We do have the agents of change that will be able to monetize, come up with the business plans, and then therefore see whether they can be bankable. So that's just an appeal. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Actually, one of the questions I was going to ask here is how many sectors I included in this audience. If Ministry of Education is not here, you are here because you join up with the creative arts. If technology and innovation is not here, if we cannot, just like you say, Dr. Wanja, even making a film, you employ all industries. The same way in growing the industry, you need all the ministry representatives. And that's what I'm hoping, like the Bank of Namibia will form a very strong task force where you include all the key disciplines in there. Yeah. Okay. You're done?
Yes.
Can I sit now?
Yes, please. Thank you once again for that very insightful presentation and, of course, that engaging Q&A as well. As we close this inspiring event, ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Ms. Angelica Schroeder, Rector of the College of the Arts, to officially deliver the closing remarks. Thank you.
Time here to end it. But good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for coming this evening. Our Excellency, Dr. Pilat, thank you so much for having you here. It's amazing what is happening tonight. I'm just so glad that we're all here joining the symposium, this public lecture, and specifically on arts. It's been my long dream to always have this kind of public discussions, because arts is also academia. Am I right? Yes? But I want us to give you relation because this room is way too quiet. Let's go, Namibian way. Yeah! Ah, that's too weak. Again. That's great. Now, today we explored vital topics that highlight the transformative potential of the creative industries. I want to take you through, and I want to take you to an artistic way. And I have kind of imagined myself what each and every speaker was talking about. I called the first speaker, who's Dr. Wanjo, the exhibitor, because he's exhibiting so much, so many things, gave us an insight into development opportunities and strategies to grow Namibia's creative economy. Key points that we can take from her is on technology, enabler of creating technovation socially, yes? And then the local, continental, and global export. That's what we like to take about those key points or words or sentences. So the next speaker, who was Miss Joffe. She spoke about, but she's the voice because she has this lovely voice. Love it. She's the voice. The discussion on the value of arts and culture. And this, what we can do is to take this traditional knowledge and contemporary art forms to generate a job and the value in it that is so great. Thank you so much for that. And again, we take the key points, heritage, traditional knowledge, and of course, my favorite, what I would like to see increase in Namibia, is the seed capital in economic and financial value. Then the third speaker, who is Ms. Muhoho. Yes, she is the monologue. Because she was standing here, it's like she's giving her a monologue. You know, artists, we are very, very expressive and we see things. So we are very grateful for her session on business models and finances that underscored the importance of sustainable planning, market understanding, and access to funding for creative enterprises. Now, what really took me away, the key points there, is that ideas without financing is like a zebra beautifully striped, yet hungry. So simplify your business models, but learn the language of finances. So, for me, ladies and gentlemen, as we leave today, let us carry forward these insights. Let us champion policies, partnership, and investment strategies that nurture creative talent, empower artists and entrepreneurs, and ensure Namibia's creative industries flourish locally, continentally, and globally. Creative thrives in freedom, diversity, and collaboration, and is also shared by responsibility to ensure its process. Now, I would like to thank to each and every one, the speakers again. I would like to thank the participants here today. I would also like to say thank you to NAST for giving us this beautiful venue, for Bank of Namibia by organizing this, and every single person that was involved. We have the cameraman. I'm actually recognized one of our students here, College of the Arts. But anyhow, what I would like to say again is to say thank you again for your engagement, your vision, your dedication, and to advancing Namibia's creative industries. May the ideas shared here inspire tangible action, and may our creative spirit continue to be catalyst of innovation, growth, and national pride. John 9, I don't know if you know, the singer says, the only limitation is your imagination. Good evening.
Thank you so much for those closing remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, we have officially come to the close of today's program. Thank you so much to the speakers, presenters, and of course the participants, students. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to really form part of this conversation. Again, tomorrow we officially host the Bank of Namibia's annual symposium and extending further on the conversation on the creative industry. Once again, we do have some food and refreshments outside for those in the room, and have a lovely evening. See you.